For every tyrant who builds a throne of fear, a reckoning waits. Sometimes it comes in the dead of night. Other times it's a spectacle for the world to see. Power, especially the absolute kind, is a house of cards. It looks impressive, but a single breath of defiance can bring it all down. History is filled with leaders who, convinced of their own infallibility, believed they were untouchable, only to discover they were tragically mortal. This is the story of how two of the 20th century's most brutal dictators met their violent ends, brought down not by foreign armies, but by the pressure from within, like a dam bursting from the force of the very people it was built to control. For the man who called himself Italy's modern Caesar, the end didn't come in a palace but on a wet roadside at the hands of his own countrymen. Benito Mussolini, Il Duce, was the father of fascism, a political poison that would inspire copycats and drag a continent into darkness. He took power in 1922, promising to restore the glory of the Roman Empire. For 2 decades, his cult of personality was a solar system of its own, with him as the sun and all of Italy forced to orbit him. His voice boomed from radios, and his jutting jaw stared from posters in every town square. He was Italy, but the grandiose dream was rotting from the inside, like a magnificent apple that is gleaming on the outside but infested with worms. Aligning with Nazi Germany in World War II, Mussolini was like a gambler betting the family fortune on a losing hand, leading his country into one catastrophic defeat after another. By 1943, the Allies had invaded Sicily, and the Italian people's faith was shattered. In a stunning reversal, Mussolini's own fascist Grand Council voted him out, and the king had him arrested. His fall was as shockingly fast as his rise, like a meteor that blazes across the sky only to crash violently to earth. Though German commandos broke him out of prison and installed him as a puppet leader in northern Italy, he was a king with a cardboard crown, a dictator without a country. By April 1945, the war in Europe was in its death throes. Caught in a vice grip between Allied forces pushing from the south and Italian anti-fascist fighters, the partisans, rising up across the north, Mussolini's position was hopeless. On April 25th, he fled Milan for the Swiss border, traveling with his mistress, Clara Petacci. Knowing he was a marked man, Mussolini put on a German greatcoat and helmet, hoping to blend in. It was like trying to hide a bonfire with a handkerchief. The disguise was useless. Near the village of Dongo on Lake Como, partisans stopped the convoy and one recognized the former dictator. Mussolini and Petacci were captured on April 27th. The end was here. He spent his last night in a remote farmhouse, a prisoner of the people he once ruled with an iron fist. The decision to execute him was made swiftly by the partisan command. On the afternoon of April 28, 1945, a communist partisan commander named Walter Audisio was sent to carry out the sentence. Mussolini and Petacci were driven to the village of Giulino di Mezzegra and ordered to stand against a stone wall. According to Audisio's account, his submachine gun jammed at first. He then grabbed another partisan's weapon, declared he was carrying out justice for the Italian people, and opened fire. Mussolini was killed almost instantly. Clara Petacci, who reportedly tried to shield him, was executed moments later. But their story didn't end there. For the people, justice demanded more than death. It demanded humiliation. The bodies were hauled to Milan and dumped in a public square called Piazzale Loreto. The location was brutally symbolic. A year earlier, fascist troops had executed 15 partisans there. It was a poetic, if gruesome, form of justice, turning the hunter's own weapon against him. An immense, furious crowd gathered, kicking, spitting on, and desecrating the corpses. One woman reportedly fired 5 shots into Mussolini's body, screaming, "5 shots for my 5 murdered sons!" To give the jeering masses a better view, the bodies were then hung by their ankles from the metal girders of a gas station. The image of Il Duce, a man who postured as a giant, hanging upside down and battered, became the definitive symbol of fascism's fall. On Christmas Day 1989, as much of the world celebrated peace, Romania gifted itself the execution of its leader. This was the final violent chapter for Nicolae Ceausescu and his wife, Elena. For 24 years, they'd ruled Romania like their personal kingdom. Ceausescu climbed the ranks of the Communist Party to become its head in 1965. He soon built a terrifying cult of personality, casting himself and Elena as the nation's benevolent parents, while in reality ruling like cruel prison wardens. His power was absolute, enforced by the dreaded secret police, the Securitate, whose web of informants acted like a nervous system for the state, sensing dissent everywhere and crushing it instantly. While the Ceausescus lived in obscene luxury, the Romanian people endured a nightmare. It was a tale of two countries in one, a palace of glittering excess floating on an ocean of public misery. But even the most pervasive fear has a breaking point. Like a balloon being inflated past its limit, the public pressure was about to create a violent pop. In mid-December 1989, a protest in Timișoara spiraled into a full-blown uprising. Ceausescu ordered the army to fire on demonstrators, but news of the massacre didn't crush the dissent. It ignited it. On December 21st, he made a fatal mistake. He staged a mass rally in Bucharest, expecting adoring crowds. Instead, broadcast live, the crowd began to jeer. For the first time, the nation saw panic on their leader's face. It was like watching a magician's trick get exposed. The awe instantly curdled into rage. The spell was broken. The revolution tore through Bucharest. The next day, as protesters stormed the Central Committee building, Nicolae and Elena Ceausescu fled by helicopter. Their escape was pathetically short. The military, seeing the ship was sinking, abandoned its captain. The pilot landed, and the couple was quickly handed over to the army. The new revolutionary government, the National Salvation Front, had to act fast. They saw Ceausescu as a venomous snake. As long as he was alive, even if caged, he posed a deadly threat. On Christmas Day, inside a bare room at a military base, Nicolae and Elena faced a show trial. It was less a legal proceeding and more like a theatrical performance where the final act, the execution, was already written. The charges were read: genocide, citing a hugely exaggerated figure of over 60,000 deaths. The number was pure propaganda, a hammer to strike the final nail into Ceausescu's coffin. Throughout, Nicolae was defiant, refusing to recognize the court. The verdict was a foregone conclusion. Both were sentenced to death, to be carried out immediately. They were led into a courtyard. According to one soldier, Ceausescu's final words were a defiant shout of, "Long live the free and independent Socialist Republic of Romania." A squad of paratroopers then opened fire. The entire event, the sham trial and execution, was filmed and broadcast, a gruesome confirmation that the Ceausescu era was truly over. Romania became the only Eastern Bloc country to violently overthrow its communist regime and execute its leader in the revolutions of 1989. So what do we take away from these brutal endings? While larger geopolitical forces set the stage, these regimes weren't toppled by an external storm, but collapsed from within, like a dam bursting from the pressure of the water it was meant to hold back. Their power, once absolute, proved to be a mirage. It seemed real from a distance, but dissolved into nothing the moment people decided they would no longer be afraid and walked right through it. The public humiliation of Mussolini's corpse and the televised execution of the Ceausescus both served the same primal purpose: to shout from the rooftops that the monster was well and truly dead, breaking the fever of fear that had gripped the nation. It's a chilling lesson on the fleeting nature of absolute power and the enduring, often violent quest for freedom. These stories show that no wall is high enough and no army loyal enough to protect a leader from the righteous anger of their own people. History is filled with shocking stories like these, chapters that reveal the best and worst of human nature. If you want to keep exploring them with us, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive. Thanks for watching.